Our big project for this year was reconstructing the Como water tank. Here is a model of the water tank on the layout of Richard Severance. He made a very generous donation to get the project started. We acquired a supply of Engelmann spruce logs that were originally harvested near Wolf Creek Pass in southwestern Colorado. These large logs were then milled by volunteer Dan Silbaugh on his portable sawmill into the required lumber. Here are the 12x12s for the vertical columns of the tank. July 23rd was a big day in Como at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Como water tank. Here are water tank contractors Chris Tome, Bob Revis, along with Dan Silbaugh and Bob Shoppy. The water tank will be built in two phases. Phase 1 is the tank base up to the floorboards. On August 16th, Phase 1 was nearly complete with the base constructed up to the joists. These two 2,100-gallon water tanks were donated to us by Society member Dennis Topin in Champaign, Illinois. We drove out and brought them back to Como. 4 of these tanks will go inside the water tank barrel to give us 8,400-gallon capacity for our locomotive needs, and will also be available to the local fire department. In May, the Plymouth 20-ton switcher was being loaded onto a semi-trailer for transport to the Disher Trucking Yard in Commerce City to receive a new prime mover. The Plymouth is loaded up along with its original Climax 6-cylinder diesel engine and a 6-cylinder GMC engine that was originally going to be installed. The switcher will receive this transmission and the GMC engine. John and Steve Disher will complete the installation. In September, the GMC engine has been placed in the frame of the switcher. In June, we began to paint the trackside markers at the Roundhouse entrance that had been donated by Nick Ralston. The Colorado and Southern trackside markers include a derail, mile marker, whistle post, and crossbucks. During June and July, our volunteers added 10 lengths of rail south on the Gunnison Main track. A group of volunteers, led by Joey Naus, installed a vehicle crossing at the Roundhouse entrance. They also installed 2 others on the historic Colorado Highway 8 by the depot. On June 26, Klondike Kate's headlight was illuminated for the first time. Also in June, the Society received a very generous donation from Ross Crane in Calgary, Alberta. Ross donated over 200 pounds of G-scale models. Many of these are on display in the Roundhouse. Another very generous donation came from Andrew Dodge. The remnants of his world-famous O-scale South Park layout are now on display in the depot. Many of these incredible models are scratch-built and include a Mason Bogie 286 and even a South Park engine number 1, the Fairplay. In the Roundhouse, we have placed stone over the dirt and cinders as a stopgap measure before we rebuild the original wooden floor. This will be a large and expensive project. Stalls 4 and 5 are the most recent to receive the stone treatment. In May, we dropped off the South Park Zephyr Model T at the shop of Scott Francis, just outside of St. Louis. The project was started by Jeff Badger. Since then, Scott has acquired another complete Model T, and with that, he now has everything he needs to finish the Zephyr. On May 22nd, a volunteer group was excavating the ash pit that will be restored to working order with track in the future for Klondike Kate to use. Also in May, we took delivery of some 300 ties that we had gathered last November and that had been stored in the Disher trucking yard over the winter. Here is Bob Revis using his backhoe to unload the ties from Disher's semi-truck. BNSF Railroad donated 2 hydraulic power tools, a despiker and a chainsaw. A dream realized. More than 25 years ago, Bill Cazell and his son Greg and other volunteers restored the Roundhouse. At that time, he also acquired a 50-foot turntable and placed it in the pit and hoped one day to see it restored and go for a spin on it. On May 29th, that dream finally came true as grandson Cameron pushed his grandfather around on the Como turntable. In March, the Park County Creative Alliance contacted us about a community at the general store in Jefferson. They had several artists who were going to paint a mural on the side of the store that could be seen by passing traffic on US Highway 285. This was to be a caricature of local history, and they asked for our help and support. Our society donated much of the paint and materials for the mural. In July, local artist Tammy Peterson was working on engine number 9. By the end of July, the mural was finished. Here is a close-up of engine number 9 and the Leadville train arriving in Jefferson. Here is the completed mural on the north side of the Jefferson Market. Here is a circa 1929 view of the Como track scale and scale house taken from the second floor of the hotel. Just beyond the scale house and the last boxcar can be seen the Como stock pens. In August, Nicholas Vanderboer and his son Craig stand in front of the scale house replica that they are constructing on its original site. Nicholas and Craig wanted to do a father-son project in Como, and this is the result. Here is the nearly completed scale house replica in its original location. Como volunteer Joey Naus set to building several much-needed benches around Como, and Matilda doesn't seem to mind being tied to one by the depot. Joey finishing another bench by the Roundhouse entrance. Here is another nearly completed Roundhouse bench. And 3 more benches on the west side of boxcar 8027. Last December, the Georgetown Loop donated 20 coach seats. These seats will probably end up in our ex-Rio Grande Southern Coach 256. But in the meantime, we put runners under them and use them as additional seating in the Roundhouse on Boreas Pass Railroad Day. Years ago, Norm Acker located and coordinated with Denver Water to retrieve a circa 1900 automatic link and pin coupler pocket from the Flat River just below Strontia Dam, where it had been laying since a wreck long ago. We hope that this coupler pocket will once again be installed on an early South Park line car, Boxcar 608. Jerry Huck, the South Park Rail Society Vice President, works on Klondike Kate from the restored service pit in Roundhouse stall number 3. On July 23rd, while on a test run, Klondike Kate suffered a broken wedge that held the piston rod to the crosshead, thus enabling the piston to hit the front cylinder head. This setback was actually a blessing in disguise, as it enabled us to do a thorough examination of the engine and compose a list of needed maintenance, and now we have the time to do it. Here is a close-up view of the broken cast iron cylinder head, which, in the event of a failed wedge, is designed to be the next thing to fail because it is much easier to replace than the actual cylinder itself. Here is the new cylinder head being machined from a cast iron slug on a lathe. By the summer of 2022, Klondike Kate should be back smoother and safer than ever. The service pits and what were Roundhouse stalls 7 and 8 are being restored. We also plan to rebuild the Roundhouse stalls for bays 7, 8, and 9. This was the configuration of the Roundhouse in the early 1930s. In July, volunteers completed the installation of the Roundhouse doorposts. These were a recreation of the posts that are evident in historic photographs. Now the doors can be safely latched open and not be subject to swinging in the wind. Here are all 12 Roundhouse doors securely latched to the doorposts. This view from the Roundhouse roof shows Klondike Kate getting ready for a boiler wash and volunteers finishing the track from the turntable to stall number 1. Every workday we take pictures of our volunteers, including volunteer coordinator Tom Lawson on the left. The end of track is now to the point that we use a speeder to carry volunteers to the work site. Here you can see how far we have come in the 5 years we have been laying track. We now have nearly 9/10 of a mile. Just how far we will go remains to be seen. Boxcar 8311, which came down from Boreas Pass, will get new paint and lettering in the spring of 2022. The Society's 2021 convention was held in Leadville. Today, the Leadville, Colorado and Southern Railroad operates trains from the beautifully restored depot. The 1884 Leadville Freight Depot has also benefited from a beautiful restoration. On August 22nd, the Society held our annual Boreas Pass Railroad Day. Guests were treated to handcar rides and Roundhouse tours. This year, we had 2 operating speeders, giving passengers rides from the depot. An enthusiastic crowd awaits the beginning of the Denver Brass and Celtic Colorado Bagpipers and Drums concert.